Good evening. Welcome into the Baseline View, where we preview Missouri and Kentucky, a matchup between one of the 15 best teams in the country and a struggling team that is well under 500 for the season with very little postseason hopes and just looking to get the year over with, just the way it's been for the last few years. Kind of. If I had told you at the beginning of this season that Missouri would host Kentucky in a game that wasn't even the biggest basketball game of the week on Missouri's schedule, you would have probably not believed me, I'm going to guess. The Wildcats are 5-10. They are 4-4 in the SEC. I spent most of the first 2 months of this season thinking and saying, hey, it's Kentucky. They're going to figure it out. We'll get there. They've got too much talent to be this bad. Well, guys, we're over halfway through the season. Kentucky hadn't figured anything out. They're 5-10. They have lost 4 out of 5. Lost by 21 to Alabama at home. Lost at Auburn. Lost at Georgia. Came back and beat LSU somehow. And then lost again at Alabama, a game in which they led and played with the Crimson Tide for much of the game, and then just absolutely fell apart and watched Alabama go on a 12-5 run to end the game and win it by 11, 70-59. That was all before they had Saturday's game against Texas in the Big 12 SEC Challenge canceled due to COVID issues. This game was supposed to happen last night. It didn't, push back a day so that Kentucky had enough guys to travel and play. John Calipari has indicated there might be some guys on his team missing for this game, but it would not be due to COVID issues. So we really don't know what that means. We don't know for sure who Kentucky will or will not have. We're not sure it matters. Kentucky is not very good this year. And Mark is asking the question that everybody wants to know. Why is Kentucky not good this year? The truth is, we don't really know. They aren't any good on offense. They're still pretty good on defense. But they can't shoot the 3 at all. They don't shoot the 2 all that well. They turn the ball over a ton. And this is oversimplifying things. But if you look at Ken Pomeroy's site, who has tons of metrics and ranks college basketball teams in about every way you can possibly rank college basketball teams, he has a factor called luck. And basically what that is, hey, if you look at every other factor where these teams should rank and all that, and then you look at their actual record as to what it would compare to what you think it's going to be. What is it? Well, Missouri is one of the luckier teams in the country, according to that. And Kentucky is one of the unluckier teams in the country. And basically, what that comes down to is the last 5 minutes of the game. Missouri's been good. They found a bunch of different ways to win. Kentucky's found a bunch of different ways to lose. I mean, I don't know that there's any explanation for it. If you look on paper, Kentucky has maybe not usual Kentucky talent, but they do have, a good amount of talent. I mean, they've got guys that were highly ranked players. Brandon Boston Jr. was one of the most heavily recruited guys in the country, and he's been all right, 12.5. 5.5 rebounds. Terrence Clark was highly recruited. Olivier Sarr was a huge grad transfer when they got him from Wake Forest, and they thought the talent was there to maybe not be usual Kentucky, but good Kentucky, and it simply hasn't happened. So this is a game. It sounds weird to say, but this is a game Missouri should win. It's not catastrophic, if they don't win it. But Ken Pom gives them a 64% chance of winning. Missouri's ranked 37th in the country on KenPom. Kentucky is 52nd. It's not a huge gap, but Missouri is considered the better team. Here's, I think, the big factor, the big reason that these two teams are where they're at. This was an offseason unlike any other. No practices, no offseason workouts. The guys didn't spend any time together. Well, Kentucky changes its roster every year. 5-star recruits, one and done, pick up a transfer here and there. It's brand new guys. They've never played together before game one of the season, which for Kentucky was not a very successful game. I'm sorry, game one was successful, 81-45 over Morehead State. Game two was a 12-point loss to Richmond. This is a team that hasn't spent much time together. Meanwhile, Conzo Martin has a roster that, outside of Drew Buggs, these guys have all been playing together for a minimum of a full year before this season started. Kobe Brown is, the newest guy. Xavier Pinson's a junior. Drew Smith is in his third year on campus. Mitchell Smith's in his fifth year. Jeremiah Tillman's in his fourth year. Mark Smith's in his third year. They've all played together. They didn't need off-season workouts. They didn't need practices. They didn't need the trip to Paris or Montreal or the Bahamas or wherever they go to play exhibition games. They'd already played together. They knew each other's style, each other's tendencies, all of that. So I think that's a big factor. It's not as simple as COVID helped Missouri, but COVID didn't hurt Missouri as badly as it hurt a team like Kentucky. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this year, the teams that rely heavily on those one-and-dones, Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, they're all down this year. Michigan State doesn't rely on the one-and-dones as much, but they get some of them. Kansas doesn't rely on them as much, but they get some of them. All of those teams are worse this year than they usually are, as Jeffrey Weber points out. And I think, there are two reasons to say that. Reason number one is what we're talking about, COVID and the weird offseason and all that. Reason number two, look, let's just acknowledge the elephant in the room. This is the year that the FBI's cracked down on college recruiting. Maybe there's something to that. I'm not saying that, I'm not picking out any individual program other than the ones who have already been kind of noticed by the FBI. But you look at the teams that are usually good, and they're not as good this year. If you want to call that a great coincidence, cool. Maybe it is a great coincidence. Also, let's, kind of acknowledge the fact that maybe it's not. And like Mark says, you know what? It's good for college basketball. I mean, Gonzaga's not exactly a Cinderella story, right? Gonzaga's been up there. And Baylor has been up there to some extent. But not every year, maybe not this good. Villanova, hey, they're always there. Michigan, they've been there the last few years, but they're not an every year top 15 program. Houston, by no means an every year top 15 program. Texas, by no means. Ohio State, they had been in the past. They haven't recently. Iowa, Oklahoma, Alabama, Tennessee, Illinois, Texas Tech, Virginia, Creighton, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Missouri, Wisconsin, Florida State. That's your top 20. That's good for college basketball. What do we talk about college football? The big problem? Look, I can name the playoff before the season. It's not good for the sport. Getting some of these teams, seeing a Houston, Ohio State, Florida State, Missouri Final Four, hey, it'd be great for you guys, but it'd be great for college basketball. It would increase interest in the sport. I think it's great to see different teams on top. Now, look, can Kentucky win this game? Sure, Kentucky can win this game. It is by no means impossible that Kentucky comes into Mizzou Arena, puts it all together, plays its best game of the season, and wins. They've got the talent to do it. I don't think there's any danger of Missouri looking past Kentucky. The name on the front of the jersey makes that impossible. Missouri should be up for this game. It should play, with energy. Whether it plays well or not is different than whether it plays with energy. But this should not be a Bradley situation where they come out and think they're going to roll the ball out and beat Kentucky. That's not a real thing. So we'll talk more about Kentucky with Justin Roland from Cats Illustrated here in just a minute. Want to get to Patrick's question real quick. If all of the teams safely in the dance skipped out on the SEC tournament, what would that mean in terms of auto bids for the SEC tourney winner? Well, the NCAA is supposed to make a statement about this at some point. All indications we have is that the SEC wants to play its tournament as regular and wants the teams that can play to play. The NCAA is going to, at some point, according to a John Rothstein tweet a few days ago, at some point soon going to address this idea of teams opting out of the conference tournament. I wrote earlier this week, if it is given the opportunity to opt out and it is safely in the tournament, Missouri should not play the SEC tournament. I just don't see the point of putting your place in the NCAA tournament at risk, second time you've been there in 8 years, to go play Georgia and LSU in Nashville. It doesn't make any sense. But if they allow teams to opt out, then I don't think you can still award the conference tournament winner an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Because what that's going to do is screw every mid-major and low-major team that has a chance in that at-large bid. And I don't think that's good for college basketball. And what it would mean is that Kentucky, as like the 8th seed, is really going to be the 3 seed and may go win the tournament. Duke, same thing. Carolina, same thing. Kansas, same thing. I mean, Kansas is going to be in the NCAA tournament anyway, but same thing. They've got a lot of things to figure out, and they haven't figured any of them out yet, which I'm sure is a big shock to you guys, the way the NCAA runs things and all that. But we'll see where that all goes. Mark Kettler wanted to know if any of the MU seniors are going to come back. We don't know at this point. It would be surprising, I think, because these guys can all go make money playing basketball somewhere. And honestly, like playing for free and going to class and all that is, it sounds super glorious, I know, but maybe isn't the most glorious thing in the world. So I wouldn't expect any of the seniors back. I mean, maybe a guy like Mitchell Smith comes back, but, Jeremiah Tillman can go make money. Drew Smith can go make money. Mark Smith can make money somewhere. So I don't think that's a thing that's going to happen, but you never know until they say they're done. We don't know that they're done. So we're going to catch up with Mitchell Forty at the arena in a few minutes. The game tips off in 45 minutes on ESPN2. We will be with you here on the Baseline View up till tip-off. Afterwards, I'll jump on Konzo's press conference. We'll come back on the post-game show, the Burger Smokehouse Dance Class, like we always do. And we'll talk about what happens tonight. But before we talk to Mitch, I wanted to catch up with my counterpart from Cats Illustrated. He covers Kentucky. We talked a little bit about the Wildcats. Going to play that for you guys. It's about 10 minutes long. We'll come back, chat for a minute, and catch up with Mitch over at the arena. All right, talking with Justin Roland of CatsIllustrated.com. And Justin, I imagine your job has been a little bit adventurous during basketball season. I don't guess Kentucky fans are enjoying this season too much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what we're at right now, but I know when they were 1-6, it was the worst start since 1926-27. Really uncharted territory, especially under John Calipari. He did miss the NCAA tournament once, right after they won a national championship, but you got a little bit of a grace period then, and that was when Nerlens Noel was injured. I think, what makes this year different is there's not one or two things that are wrong. There are a lot of things that they're struggling with. And I think people have, frankly, a lot of fans have packed it in on the season while they're trying to right the ship. So it's been a rough year for sure.
Is this team better than the record would indicate? I mean, or is there some fundamental issue with this team that, hey, this is just kind of who they are? Because I think a lot of us from the outside spent 2 months saying, well, don't worry, Kentucky now won't be what they are in 2 months.
I just pulled up KenPom right now because one of the categories that he has is luck.
Right.
And that's a little bit misleading because it doesn't necessarily mean they've been unlucky. That maybe you can blame them for why some things haven't gone their way late and why the record doesn't match up with what they should be. But they're 348th in the country in luck. But I think most people would say, like, there were a couple of late shots they could have hit that would have changed outcomes, but you're still not talking about a team with a winning record. So even if they hadn't been unlucky, it still wouldn't be a great year. You just go up and down the roster. They thought BJ Boston and Terrence Clark were going to be top 5 recruits, major impact guys, and neither one of them has been very good. Olivier Sarr was an all ACC player as a center coming in. You think he's going to be an all SEC center, and he's been wildly inconsistent. They don't have a point guard. Their best player for the season might have been the sixth man at Creighton in Davion Mintz, and that's crazy at Kentucky. That Kentucky's best player was the sixth man at Creighton. So there are a million issues with this team.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Right?
Everything's fine. Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, but how much? Because I think I'm dealing with the opposite situation here. A lot of Missouri's got a bunch of third, fourth, and fifth year players, and a lot of the talk with Missouri starting so well was, hey, teams that have been together and are experienced are going to be in better shape because nobody got an off season, nobody had practice. I mean, is that a factor for Kentucky, you think, or is that a little bit more of we're looking for a reason that might not be there?
I think yes and yes. I mean, I think if you look around college basketball, there doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason behind what has happened in a lot of teams' cases this year. And it's really weird to see Duke and Kentucky and North Carolina. North Carolina's a little bit different. They're kind of turning it around. But so many of the Blue Bloods, Kansas, struggling. I do think the lack of continuity that some of those programs have been sucked into, it's kind of a trap of their own making, of their own success, has hurt them this season. But that's one factor. But this team really isn't all that young. I mean, Olivier Sarr, well, they are young, but Olivier Sarr is a senior. They got Keon Brooks back, who missed the first part of the season. He's a sophomore. By Kentucky standards, they've got a little bit of experience, but I do think that's been somewhat of a factor.
So if this is going to if this team's going to rise up and bite Missouri on Wednesday night, how are they going to do it? I mean, where are they good, and where are the areas that do present problems?
They're a lot better when they run because they can't execute a half-court offense. There's no point guard. There's no shooting. Their big men are not strong enough to keep position on the block. So they've been a lot better when they've been able to get out and run. But when your guard play is questionable, it's hard to push the tempo. And I think most teams, smart teams, have known that if you get them into a slugfest in the half court, then they're going to struggle to beat you. Florida let them run, and they beat them. LSU, Will Wade, I don't understand what his plan was going into that game. That's just how they play defense. But they allowed Kentucky to play in the open court, and it was the best they've looked all season. So for sure, you want to get this team in a half-court game and force them to execute an offense, because you end up getting turnovers, huge problem this year, runouts, a lot of shot clock situations. You want to play Kentucky in the half court.
So I know, and it's kind of weird previewing a Kentucky game and focusing so little on the game and more on the big picture, but that's what this season has been. I have seen, and I understand how things work at programs like Kentucky. If you're not in the Final Four, the season was kind of a waste. But any of this talk about, John Calipari looking to leave or anything like that, that's kind of crazy, right? I mean, that's not really a realistic thing on the radar.
No, I mean, the last 5 years have been down from where his first 5 years were, but his last 5 years haven't been that bad. Like, they've had 3 teams in the last 5 years that have been capable of reaching the Final Four, and it just didn't happen. He's going to leave probably on his own terms when he's ready to leave. I think his buyout would be like $53 million or something crazy like that. So, you name him the lifetime coach, which is basically what the athletics director did. And it's very much on his terms. Now, is Calipari the kind of coach that's going to want to stay somewhere 15 years? I don't know. He was like 9-10 years at Memphis, 9-10 years at UMass. He said when he got to Kentucky that this was like a 9-10 year job, because it ages a coach so much. There's so many responsibilities aside from basketball, high stress. It wouldn't shock me if he were to leave in the near future, but I also don't think he's going to get another school or NBA franchise to pay him $9 million a year. I will say I understand what the critics are saying, because it's the convergence of they're behind the sports trends when it comes to offense. They don't utilize the three-point shot. They're playing 2 bigs when you really want to space the court. It kind of looked like they're in the Stone Age offensively. And he's been a little bit stubborn in terms of sticking to some of the methods that got him in that situation. And you're talking about the worst season in 100 years, the record wise, on the heels of not reaching the Final Four in 5 or 6 seasons. So it is the most adversity that he's faced as a coach. And I think everybody recognizes that he needs to make some changes.
Kentucky doesn't really have that guy this year. I mean, they've got four guys in double digits, all between 10 and 12 points. The guy's name who I've heard the most, and I'll admit to not having watched a ton of Kentucky this year, but Dante Allen, gets on the floor, has this breakout game against Mississippi State. So fill Missouri fans in who maybe haven't followed that team this closely about the situation with Allen.
So Dante is like a proxy war in like the Cold War between Calipari and Kentucky's fan base right now. Like he represents the entire debate because he's a kid from Kentucky. He's not a great athlete. He was like a 3-star recruit, the kind of kid that as Kentucky's going to Final Fours, everybody's like, why can't we get one of those local kids that can shoot and do everything? But the grass is always greener. And so I get it. Fans want to cheer for the local kid. They love the 3-ball. There have been some problems there. And the problem for Kentucky has been not getting the 5 stars so much, but just rounding out the roster with those niche players, those role players, those shooters, because they transfer, because they get recruited over. And so Kentucky's 1-6, and Calipari is keeping the one offensive option that they have on the bench. And he seems to be digging his heels in more and more every time people clamor for him. Well, lo and behold, he comes into the game in Kentucky's SEC opener and he knocks down like 7 3-pointers and he scores 25 points. And Calipari's thrilled, but inside he might be like, oh crap, now I got to face these people. And they win their first 3 games in SEC play. I mean, look, he does help the team, but he's not the savior. There's not one person that can fix this team, but he is their best 3-point shooter, and they're better when he's on the court because it spaces the defense out a little bit.
All right, so Wednesday night in Columbia, Mizzou and Kentucky. What's Mizzou need to do it's really a role reversal, right? Where Kentucky comes in as the team kind of looking to pull the upset and maybe spoil a good season. What does Missouri need to do well to kind of avoid this going the wrong way for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just stick to, like I said, getting Kentucky in a half-court game and just playing really solid, sound defense, they struggle to execute against that. And I'm not going to say that Mizzou's going to automatically lose because Kentucky's had some close losses. They've been competitive. But what we see is when you play like lockdown defense the last 5 minutes of the game, that's where Kentucky really struggles. When you have to focus and hone in on every possession and you have to execute a crisp, efficient half-court offense in clutch time, they've struggled to keep pace. That's where things kind of fall apart, break apart. So if the game is close late, as long as they're locked in on defense, you got to give them the advantage. And I would say don't press, don't play a frenetic pace. Just stick to what they do, and they're probably favorites for a good reason.
Well, it's going to be interesting because what you've described is just exactly what Missouri has done well this year. Like it hasn't always looked great, but the last 5 minutes they've locked in, they've won close games. Ken Pom, I think, actually has them as one of the 15 luckiest teams in America. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Justin, appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, Gabe.
All right, that is Justin Roland. He is the publisher of our Kentucky site, catsillustrated.com. So wanted to let you guys hear from somebody who's had kind of a close-up view of this. I mean, I don't know really how else to describe it besides kind of a disaster of a Kentucky season. 5-10. I mean, I don't know. Their best win is. Let's look at the schedule. Their wins are Morehead State, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. At Florida was a good win, and home against LSU was a good win. So I guess at Florida is the good win. They've scored at least 76 points in every game they've won. They've scored 65 or fewer in every game they've lost. So, you hold Kentucky under 70, you're probably going to beat them. And like Justin said, it's interesting because Missouri is better when it does get out and run some. Not all the time, but some. So Missouri's going to want to take advantage of some chances to run, but defensively, you want to make sure Kentucky can't run. You want to get back. You want to force them into a half-court set because they're just not very good offensively. I mean, Dante Allen is shooting 46% from three-point range. Here's everybody else's as far as guys that play significant minutes. 3-point percentage. Brandon Boston, 18. Terrence Clark, 22.7. Olivier Sarr, 28.6. He hadn't taken very many. Keon Brooks, 22.2. Davion Mintz, 32.4. Devin Askew, 25.7. I mean, Isaiah Jackson hasn't made one. Jacob Toppin, who I've heard may not play tonight, hasn't made one. Those are all the guys that play 15 minutes or more. So they have a lot of guys. They have 9 guys who play 15 minutes or more. But they just, I mean, none of them shoot very well, other than Dante Allen, who Justin just kind of laid it out for you guys. For some reason, this is Calipari's thing. He doesn't really want to play this guy, So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds tonight. Again, Kentucky does have some guys. Kentucky is good enough to win this game. If Missouri does what it's done most of the season, Missouri should win this game. And it sounds so strange going into a game against Kentucky saying Missouri should win. I mean, this is a 13-1 series. Missouri's only win was Konzo's first year in that 2017-2018 season when Kentucky came to Mizzou Arena. And it was, I believe that was a nationally televised CBS game. I could be wrong on that. But I mean, it was Saturday, February 24th. It was, Kevin Knox coming in, and I mean, Missouri won big. Missouri won by 21 points on that day. And we'll go back. I'm actually looking at the box score right now. In that game, Missouri was led by 26 points from Cassius Robertson, 6 for 11 from 3-point range. He's not here anymore. You might know that. The only other guy in double figures in that game for Missouri was 11. They had a whole bunch of guys score between 4 and 9. Jonte Porter, Reed Nico, Jordan Geist, Kevin Puryear, Jeremiah Tillman all had between 4 and 9 points. So that was the Cassius Robertson show that day, and that was a huge win at that time. Kentucky that year wasn't maybe elite Kentucky, but they were still good. They were clearly an NCAA tournament team and all that. And Missouri knocked them off, and that was one of the more exciting days in recent program history at that time. And a win over Kentucky today, I don't know. I guess it would be exciting in that it's Kentucky. But I think more than anything, honestly, it would just be kind of expected. This is a weird game for Missouri to go into where you absolutely are going to feel disappointed if Missouri loses a basketball game to Kentucky, which is a very bizarre thing to say, but it is the truth. We are actually now going to go over to Mizzou Arena, and Mitchell, hopefully we have finally caught up with you at a time when you will not have to listen to the national anthem while doing this.
Yeah, that's the hope. I think we're early enough. You'll just have to hear the background music and all that.
Right, and that's fine.
Can't talk to the national anthem.
Yeah, so we've spent most of the first 30 minutes just kind of talking about how bizarre this is. I mean, Kentucky's coming to town, and it should be this big deal, and it's just kind of like need to get through this one to get to the basketball game against Alabama. I mean, what is this football season? This is bizarro.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. That's what I was, thinking as I was going to kind of alluded to that in the preview this morning. It's like, when's the last time you could say that Kentucky's coming to town? Worried about the team, staying focused on this game because it's not even the biggest game of the week. But certainly, we still know Kentucky has plenty of talent. They've got athleticism. So, we'll see. I think it's certainly one of those games where it's not just how Mizzou plays, it's how Kentucky plays.
Right, and there are ways that you can see Missouri losing this game without question, but I don't see one of them being Missouri wasn't focused. I mean, the name on the front of Kentucky's jersey carries enough weight that they might not play well, but they ought to play with energy. There wouldn't be any excuse for coming out flat thinking you can win this game just by showing up. All right. Can you still hear me?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, you cut out so the media Wi-Fi is dreadful.
Yeah,
It's so bad.
I've noticed that this year.
I missed most of that.
Okay, but basically the point is, I mean, Missouri might lose because they don't play well, but they shouldn't lose because they're not focused or they're looking past Kentucky. That's not a thing that can happen against Kentucky. All right, so Mizzou Arena's Wi-Fi is worthless, and so we're gonna let Mitchell go do his job and ask Mizzou if maybe they can get some decent Wi-Fi for us over there, so we can talk to him at some point before games. But again, kind of going back to what I was talking about, the simple fact of the matter is, this is still Kentucky. It's not vintage Kentucky. It's not a good Kentucky team. But it's Kentucky. I mean, that should get you going, for this game. And if it doesn't, that's a you problem. That's not a Kentucky problem. That's a you problem. And you can't get up for this game against, I don't know if it's the best program in college basketball history, but it's in the class picture. If you can't get up for that is on you. So I tell you what we're going to do, actually, since we couldn't talk to Mitch, since the Wi-Fi is dreadful over there, we've got a couple player interviews for you. So we're going to let you guys hear from a couple of the Missouri players, and we'll space them out a little bit and lead you up to tip-off at 6 o'clock. But we're going to start with Drew Smith, senior guard, who we talked to yesterday.
Drew, coming out of a wild game against TCU, when you look at the games that X and Tillman had, and that they've been having games like that a lot lately, how much confidence does it give the rest of the group knowing, hey, if we end up in a fight like that, we got not one but two guys that can take over a game?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nice knowing that you have guys that can put those numbers up and guys that can get hot and kind of keep you in a game maybe if you have some other people struggling. I think we also understand that we kind of dodged a bullet there with TCU. We can't put ourselves in those positions anymore. So it gives us confidence, but it also kind of wakes us up and just knows that you can't get in those situations often. It's not going to come out like that every time.
Colin?
Yeah, Drew, what's the defensive challenge for guarding this Kentucky team? It seems like it's going to be a little bit less ball screen defending like you guys had to do against Auburn and TCU, and more man defense.
Yeah, it's going to be a little more off the ball stuff, a little more pin down actions, floppy actions there on the baseline with Boston and Mintz. So I think just being locked in, making sure that we're staying in the numbers, we're chasing them off the screens, and we're staying attached, not getting beat out of the gate. I think it's going to be, like you said, a little different than what we've been dealing with lately, but kind of a new challenge and something we're looking forward to.
Sweetie?
Yeah, Drew, after the past two games, I mean, not great against Auburn or TCU. I guess what did the coaches kind of tell you guys need to do a little bit better after the past two games?
Coach just said we just need to get back to being who we are on the defensive end. Playing hard, getting stops and stringing stops together, really getting 2, 3, 4 stops in a row. That's who we are, and that's who we have to be if we want to get to where we want to get there at the end of the season.
Joel?
Hey, Drew, I know we talked about not having full crowds all season, but what does it mean to not have a full crowd for a game like this, which is probably one of the more anticipated games of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's almost become normal just because that's just what we've kind of gotten used to. So it's tough. Obviously, every game we go out there and it seems like there's barely anybody in the arena. It's weird every time, but it's something that we've kind of gotten used to, and we understand we have to bring our own energy and just try to keep each other's spirits up throughout the game.
Ben Arnett?
Drew, is there any message either from the coaching staff or maybe within the team about, hey, this Kentucky team, don't pay attention to the record, don't let that fool you, this is still Kentucky?
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about it, and we understand that they have the athletes, they have the players, they have everything that it takes to win games. I mean, they've won 4 games in conference already. So we're not looking at the record. We're preparing for them, who they are, personnel, just like we do everybody else, of course. But we're taking it just like another game. We can't look past anyone.
All right, again, Mizzou, Kentucky, now 24 minutes away. Game on ESPN2. This was originally scheduled for last night at 8 o'clock, rescheduled due to COVID issues, and frankly, really good thing for Missouri that Kentucky could get this in. They've already lost 2 games this year against LSU and Vanderbilt. Both were home games. I mean, Still a chance those can be made up, and that is possible. But to lose a third game off your schedule, which would kind of put you in the position of probably not being able to make all three up and have them all be home games, and at least 2 of the 3 games you would certainly be expected to win, maybe all 3, that would be rough for Missouri and really bad luck. So good for Missouri that they get to play this game. Interesting, Drew Smith talked about maybe Saturday was a good thing for this team. TCU was a game they absolutely should have won and should have won more easily than they did. TCU deserves credit, came in and played really well, but just kind of amazing that Missouri was down 12 points with 4.5 minutes left in that game. Maybe more amazing than that even is that they did come back and win, but maybe that's a little wake-up call, because if you remember earlier this year, I think it was after the Mississippi State game, could have been Tennessee, I can't remember, one of those two, but Conzo Martin said, I've been telling the guys, hey, you can't keep doing this, it's going to catch up with you. And so maybe Saturday was a little bit of, hey, you've got to play 40 minutes to beat these teams, because you're not good enough to just show up for 5 or 10 or 15 and beat a lot of these teams that are left on your schedule. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a little bit more of a complete performance out of Mizzou. I mean, the one guy who has been given a complete performance every single night, who, it's shame on me for being 38 minutes into this, and we haven't even mentioned Jeremiah Tillman's name. He's up to, now on the season, 13.9 and 8.1 rebounds per game. But, I mean, he's been better than that. The last 9, he's averaging something like 18 and 8. His 6 double-doubles in the last 9 games, 33 points and 11 boards against TCU. They had no answer for him. Just think if he was shooting free throws the way he shot free throws in the past, he's probably averaging another 2 points a game. He's probably closer to 16 and 8, which is Tillman is, I think, a lock for all SEC first team if the second half of the season goes anything like the first half of the season has gone. I think he's actually a couple big games away from really entering the SEC Player of the Year discussion. LSU's got a couple of really high-scoring guys. Obviously, Alabama is, a team that has plenty of guys who could be in that discussion. But just looking at the leading scorers in the league, and I'm actually on team stats, so that's not really going to do any good. But the leading scorers in the league, I mean, Cameron Thomas from LSU is averaging 22, so he's certainly a factor. Scottie Pippen from Vanderbilt is not going to win Player of the Year because Vanderbilt's not any good. Same for A.J. Lawson at South Carolina. Trendon Watford, he and Cam Thomas could actually probably cost each other some votes in that. But when you look at rebounds, Tillman he's third in rebounds. He's only 17th in scoring, but he's really come on. But there just aren't very many guys that are really in the top 5 to 10 of both of those categories. Emmanuel Miller from Texas A&M is, but they're not very good. Again, Trendon Watford he's third in scoring and 8th in rebounding, so he's definitely a guy you'd have to think about there. But I mean, really, as far as all-around performance, Jeremiah Tillman is having as good a year as anybody in the league. In addition to the points and the rebounds, he's 10th in the league in block shots with 1.4 a game, helped a lot by 6 in the Auburn game, and has 19 overall, has really come on defensively, rebounding. He's staying on the floor. He's Missouri's most consistent player. I mean, again, so these are the things we're talking about tonight. Missouri, led by its most consistent player, Jeremiah Tillman, is hosting Kentucky in a game that Missouri should absolutely not lose and can't look past because of a matchup against Alabama. This is real life, I guess, in 2021. I know we keep kind of hammering the same points, but that's kind of where we're at. And Jared is joining us and said must-win game. And kind of, I mean, you can't say that about – somebody asked Conto after the TCU game, was this a must-win game? He said, I don't ever look at any game that way. I mean, the only must-win games are when you get to the elimination games. SEC tournament, NCAA tournament, right? Like Missouri could lose this game and still have a solid season, still no issues going forward rest of the year, and top 4 seed in the SEC, get hot, top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. None of that's off the table if they lose tonight. It does look a little more unlikely if they lose tonight. With Alabama coming to town on Saturday, I think 1-1 this week has to happen. 2-0 certainly would really put you in good shape and would make you feel very good about things. But Saturday against Alabama is actually one of only 2 games the rest of the year that KenPom predicts Missouri to lose. They predict Alabama to win that one 77-74, 40% win probability. Kentucky tonight, they predict 69-65, 64% win probability, which means only Ole Miss and Texas A&M at home and Georgia on the road have a higher win probability for Missouri than this game against Kentucky. So I understand, Jared, why you're calling it a must-win game. It is a game Missouri should win. It is a game that would probably be semi-damaging to lose, certainly. But when you look at Kentucky's season, like, they're losing a lot of games, but they haven't lost a game to anybody bad. I mean, Richmond is 55th in KenPom. Georgia Tech is currently considered an NCAA tournament team. North Carolina has a chance. Louisville is a tournament team. Notre Dame's a little bit outside that right now. Alabama, obviously a tournament team. Auburn would be in the discussion. Their one really bad loss is Georgia. That one, 63-62 in Athens. That's not a game you can lose. But Kentucky largely has lost to good teams. Kansas, Carolina, Louisville are decent. Alabama twice. So they're capable of winning. So must-win game, I think, is too strong. Should-win game is where I would go. And bruh, appreciate you for joining us. Hope my pronunciation of that was acceptable. Says, hope Pinson can score tonight. It's usually been after he dominates a game. The next game isn't really a factor. And yeah, he has been a little bit Tillman-like up and down this year. He has had, obviously, some monstrous games. None quite as big as Saturday's game against TCU was, with 36 points, but he has had some big games. And I'm getting to Xavier's stats this season right now, and I do want to check that kind of the consistency, right? So let's go game by game with X Pinson. 17-22 in the first 2 games of the year. Then 29 minutes, 3 points at Wichita State. Then he went on a little bit of a streak. He scored double figures in 7 straight games. 12 against Liberty, 17 against Illinois, 16 Bradley, 11 Tennessee, 23 Arkansas, 13 Mississippi State. Now, that Mississippi State game was weird. Like, he played all right, but he got a lot of those points late when Missouri was in trouble. Since then, 7 against A&M, 2 against South Carolina, 27 against Tennessee, 7 against Auburn, 36 against TCU. So after going 7 straight games in double figures, Pinson has been in single figures, 7 or fewer in 3 of his last 5. So has been a little bit up and down, but he is still Missouri's leading scorer, more than 15 points a game, top 10 in the league in scoring, and certainly a guy that you have to pay attention to. And as Jake says, the length could bother him. It could. Now, look, if you talk to anybody that covers Kentucky, and I actually did a radio show in Louisville earlier this afternoon, and they said, look, Kentucky's guards can't guard it. They're not good. Kentucky's guard play has been bad all year. Now, I think that's more been on the offensive end than the defensive end. But, Kentucky is looking at Pinson as a problem in this game. So it'll be interesting I think it could be telling. If he plays well, obviously, I mean, that's always good for Missouri, but especially in this matchup. If he struggles in this matchup, it might be a little bit concerning and maybe an indication that it's going the other way. But as long as we're talking so much about Pinson, we'll let you guys hear from him. Then we'll come back and kind of finish up, take some more questions and comments leading up to tip-off in 14 minutes.
Yeah, X, Drew just told us that you guys know you dodged a bullet in that TCU game. What were your defensive takeaways and things you guys know you can't maybe get away with getting back into conference play?
I mean, we can't get away with trading baskets or letting this team almost score 100 points. So I feel like we just got to get back to what we know, limiting teams to a certain amount of points and not letting them have their way on their offense and just making things difficult for the other side. Been on it.
You actually talked after the game on Saturday about the feeling that you had, the zone you got into. Is there anything you can do to replicate that, or is that something that just happens?
I mean, it's just work, so I feel like it happens when it needs to, when my team needs it most. But I mean, as far as going forward, I feel like we defensively, myself and my teammates have a lot of things to clear up. Jerry?
Yeah, I wonder how hot you were in the last game shooting.
Oh no, I was really hot, but that's basically all I can say, really. Dave, Yarn?
Yeah, X. When did you? I mean, after how many do you kind of start to get that feeling it's going in no matter what, and then going forward, do you have to kind of guard against? Hey, not thinking every day is necessarily going to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, you always gotta be ready for whether it's a good game or a bad game. But I mean, like I said before, it's just work, just being ready to catch and shoot the ball and having a lot of confidence, and my teammates having a lot of confidence in me. So I feel like when I shoot, I just got to make it for them. Dave?
X, when you look at the personnel for this Kentucky team, what stands out to you right now?
What stands out is they have some really big bigs, and if we let the bigs have their way around the rim, they can maybe end up having a pretty good game. And of course, they have a good guard in Brandon Boston and some good experienced guard play in Davion Mintz. So, I mean, we just got to come in and not take this game lightly at all because of their record and because of how they started the season. Andrew Kaufman?
Xavier, how would you compare this Kentucky team to maybe some of the other ones in years past that you guys have played?
I mean, I would just say, I mean, I'm not a Kentucky player, but from the outside looking in, I would just say the camaraderie of the team. You could tell the past Kentucky teams, you know, they were disciplined and more experienced or just more locked in. But I feel like this team is just having a little bit of problems with a lot of different things that I don't know about. So, hey, man.
I'm good. Never mind.
Gabe? No. Colin?
Yeah, X Drew is a guy who had to sit out when he first got here, and you know, if he didn't have that redshirt year, he might not be playing this season. Just how did you see that year impact his growth, and how he's been able to put that that to use this season?
I mean, he's coming from Evansville, so I feel like the year he sat out, I feel like he was just getting, you know, comfortable with the guys, comfortable with the coaching staff, comfortable with the way of life in Como. So I feel like that just kind of calmed him down and seeing how everything works and seeing how the coaches are and stuff. And I feel like when he was eligible to play, I mean, he stepped on right away as a leader. And I mean, he leads by example, and he just stepped right in, ready to play, I feel like. Jerry, do you have another one?
Yeah, I wonder how important is Jeremiah to what you guys get done in any.
He's really the source of what we do. Like, we got to go through him. I feel like we go through Tilly and get him active in the post early. And I mean, that's really our key to success. That's kind of our secret key to success. We go to Tilly early, get him, you know, active and ready, get him happy, you know, that he's touching the ball and stuff. So I feel like that's really the early source, just to go to Tilly. And then once he gets going, I mean, you know, the doubles are coming, so that opens up a lot of stuff for other people. And that's basically it.
Thought that was a pretty telling moment there with Xavier Pinson. You know, can you compare this Kentucky team to Kentucky teams you've seen in the past? And there was about a 2-3 second pause. And that's a player sitting there going, how do I answer this question and not say something that's going to appear in the Kentucky locker room on the bulletin board, right? And you know, they have a lot of things going on that I don't know about. So I thought that was interesting. And then the last question, about Tillman. Look, we've talked about Tillman, and we all know this, right? If you've watched his team, you know this. But he said, Jeremiah's the source of everything we do. He's got to touch the ball. And Konzo has said frequently that Tillman does pretty well in matchups where he has, a matchup against another kind of traditional big man. And Olivier Sarr is a 7-footer. Now, he is a guy that, he's not completely – he'll step out of the lane a little bit, maybe more than some 7-footers, but he's a big guy. But Tillman's got 20 pounds on him. I mean, Sarr's listed at 7 foot 237, Tillman at 6'10", 260. So Missouri's got to run things through its big man, not just in this game, but in every single game it's going to play the rest of this season, however long this season goes. And Greg joining us, and Greg, appreciate you, man. You're here for a lot of our shows this year, and he kind of agrees with what I was saying earlier. Important game, yes, not a must win. Because the must-win games those start March 12th-ish. That's about when Missouri will start playing the SEC tournament if they do play. Would like to see, Greg wants to see a little more balanced scoring. I mean, I think by necessity you will, because Tillman and Pinson are not going to combine. I'm going to go out on a limb, guys. Tillman and Pinson are going to combine for 69 points tonight. Okay, now, look, if I'm wrong, you be the first one to call me on the post-game show and ask me why I doubted Tillman and Pinson. If they put up 69 in back-to-back games, I mean, more power to them and well done. I don't think it's going to happen. So, yeah, you need a little bit more balance probably than you got against TCU. But if you get guys doing what Tillman and Pinson are doing, you have to feed them and go to them over and over and over, as Missouri did on Saturday. I haven't looked through the box score lately, but, look, nobody else needed to be taking a shot in the second half except those two guys. Tyler points out Kentucky scored 65 or fewer in every game they've lost. That's the key. The defense needs to return. I agree. Defense hadn't been great the last couple games. And in talking to Marco Harris this week and Drew Smith, both of them kind of indicated, defense obviously wasn't good. So a little bit of that has to – look, Sharif Cooper's a freak show. I mean, he's great. He's going to do that to a lot of people. A little bit less understandable against TCU. Now, Mike Miles did have a really nice game. TCU kind of shot out of its head, but TCU was getting in the lane a lot. They were getting a lot of open shots because they were beating Missouri on the perimeter. A little more concerning there. Marco Harris talked this week about how those teams both run a little bit more ball screen stuff than Kentucky does, and that's what Missouri was struggling with the last two games. But look, John Calipari is a good coach. If he watched those two games, then Kentucky will run a little bit more ball screen stuff tonight. So Missouri's going to need to be ready for it. Now, that said, I'm not worried about Konzo Martin's team's defense long term. Speed bump, yeah, but I think they'll figure it out. But you would like to see him hold him under 70. And Aaron, smart answer by Pinson answering the Kentucky question. Totally agree. No question about that. Justin Ferguson wants to see good Mark Smith tonight. And I talked about this on the postgame show on Saturday, but I'm going to reiterate it, and I wrote about it on Monday. And so if you follow, what I say on a somewhat regular basis, you've heard this before, but I'm going to say it again because we got 5 minutes left, and I'm going to say it. If Missouri's going to go where Missouri wants to go, Mark Smith has to be a part of it. He has to be. I mean, the only guy on the roster that could take minutes away from him, you could give a few more to Pinson, to Pickett. But Pickett played 29 minutes on Saturday. I mean, you're not giving him a ton more minutes, right? You're talking about maybe 5 minutes a game. So the only guy taking significant minutes from Mark Smith is Torrance Watson. Torrance Watson is worse in virtually every statistical category for 2.5 years than Mark Smith. If you give those minutes to Watson, you're doing it on hope that he can be something that he has never been. And I've seen Mark Smith be the guy Missouri needs him to be. Hadn't been the last few games, but I've seen him be that guy. So I think you've really got to stick with him. Aaron's asking about Cameron Fletcher, and look, he had a pretty public blow up with Calipari. Got suspended got sent home for a few days. And I think it was pretty obvious to Cam when he went back, you're not going to play for a while. Like, we're going to get this figured out. You show me your attitude's good for however long it needs to be, then you'll get back on the floor. But I don't think this is a big surprise that Cameron Fletcher hadn't been seeing a lot of playing time. And I understand the transfer questions and all that are gonna continue. And whatever. I don't have any inside information. We'll see. I mean, Cam has said the right things. Cal has said the things that indicate that he's going to stay there and all that. And so we'll see where it goes. If he were to be in the transfer portal, I assume Missouri would at least take a look, but that's all down the road. But he's not playing because it all goes back to that. I want to say it was around New Year's somewhere, maybe just pre-New Year's, pre-Christmas, that he had a blow up with Calipari that was on TV and, basically just kind of had a meltdown on the court, to be quite honest with you. And, that kind of led to everything. And it takes a lot for a coach to forget that and move past that. Todd, Julian, appreciate you being here, man. Very confident. Missouri struggles with guarding fast guards, and Kentucky doesn't really have that, and that's true. Look, they don't have Sharif Cooper on this team. He doesn't exist on this team. So we'll see. Missouri and Kentucky aren't hugely different, except in two things. Missouri has a lot of experience. Kentucky has less. And Kentucky has been very bad in the last 5-6 minutes of games. And Missouri has been very good in the last 5 or 6 minutes of games. And I guess if you can pick 6 minutes when you want to be good, those are the best 6 minutes to be good. John Calipari would like to see his team be better in the last 6 minutes of games. And we will see, obviously, how that turns out tonight. So once again, just kind of want to reset you guys with what we're going to do tonight. Tip-off coming up in just a couple minutes on ESPN2. So we're going to sign off here shortly. When we do that, Mitchell Forty has you covered on the site. He'll have live updates. There's a game thread there. He and I will both be tweeting out updates throughout the game. And then after the game, which we assume will be right around 8 o'clock, I will hop on Conzo Martin's Zoom call. I'll record that. I'll come back here, hopefully by 8:30. Could be a little bit after. It just depends how quickly things happen after games. But I'll record that. I'll come back on the post-game show, the Burger Smokehouse Dance Class, 8:30-ish. We will play that for you, and then we'll take calls, comments, and all that, talk about what happened tonight. See if Missouri is moving on to 12-3 as it gets ready to host Alabama, or see if Missouri is going to suffer a loss that would be damaging but not crippling before the Tide come to town. So we'll see where it all goes. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me for an hour leading up to the game. Hope you're all back at 8:30-ish for the post-game show. Hope you bring some friends. Before you leave, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. What that's going to do, that's going to save you some time post-game. I shoot for 8:30, but I'm kind of at the mercy of how quickly the game and the press conference goes. So what you're going to do is, if you subscribe, you can get a notification when we go live. So if it's 10 minutes early, 10 minutes late, you'll know. So subscribe to the channel, hit the like button before you leave, and we will be back here to break down Mizzou, Kentucky in just a couple hours. Thanks for watching the Baseline View.